Hi everybody, the Mature Simmer here. So I'm back on here with generational farming, and I'm going to at least begin picking up the grass that I mowed, going on days ago now. I think it's days ago. I don't know. I know it just felt like it was probably something I should do. And so we've come to a point where the best way I can explain what I'll probably chat about as I sit here and try to start this today is saying the quiet part out loud. I don't know, maybe I'm not 4 days away yet because it doesn't look like everything has grown. Yeah, alright, we're on forage day. So yeah, November is kind of what I thought would happen. So we're kind of, or I've kind of started to feel as if there's just some difficulty getting excited about what I've got to do here. And I've been trying to figure out why. And the best I can put my finger on things is it's a little bit like participating in some activity. Let's say it's a sporting event, baseball, a football game, and I'm going through and doing the work of whatever I need to do to succeed in that competition, because again, at the end of the day, generational farming is a competition. If it was not, I likely would not be doing it. I would just be running the regular farm I have on FSN and kind of doing that. And just, hey, I've got multiplayer and it's something I'm doing, and keeping people updated on that. So it's a bit like I'm playing the baseball game, and I feel a little bit like I've gotten into something with a lot of extra innings. So it's taking a lot of time, but maybe we're staying tied, but I don't know. It's like playing that, doing that competitive activity without a scoreboard of any kind. I think the black box nature of what this seems to have turned into is what's gnawing at me and making it like, what's the point? I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet, so don't take that as what I'm saying. But I think a lot of what generational farming was explained to be not happening, and that mainly is the random events and so forth, is, I think, a good portion of that. We've, in essence, in both generations, just had one possible random event that could have occurred in each generation, which is a long time when you're talking 8+ years for most of the generations that we've been on. And I understood the first part when it was made clear after questions, so that was a little bit of the confusion, I think, is it was unclear that when something was announced as coming, that part of the reality of it in the random number process they're using is that thing doesn't happen. It's just like, here's the random event, and now I'm going to also then not really share with you if it's going to happen or not. And then when it doesn't happen, it kind of took some coaxing, I guess, to get, oh yeah, it didn't happen because the random thing said it wasn't going to happen. And we're kind of in that point, I think, right now with the Generation 2 thing, which was the fields are really dry and, don't park equipment in the fields or something. It's kind of hinting at some sort of fire hazard or something. But that was 5 years ago or so in generational farm in this generation, and there's been no update. And so I'm just simply assuming that became a nothing burger again with the roll, and nothing has happened. If it has happened, like, maybe, hey, I have grass, don't park anything in my grass, I park it on dirt, so I was spared the conflagration that occurred on other farms. But once again, that was would have been part of the fun of hearing and seeing what was going on. And so at this point, it's really feeling like I'm just operating on another FSN map with no difference. And that's kind of, what the challenge has been. The other piece of it that wasn't really explained, and so where I talk about without view of the scoreboard, from Generation 1, like, several of us have taken the investment options. Like, we have no visibility into that at all. Like, where's everyone sitting? What did people put in? It was not clear to me that there'd be nothing except a number of, and again, the number, I think, didn't even show a number. It simply ranked us at the end of Generation 1 of who's in what position. So, like, anyone that's above me, simply because I've looked periodically at a farm, for example, and just like you can in FSN, gone on the other servers and said, oh, I'm pretty sure that person's ahead of me because, wow, look at all the land they have and this and that. That's the only data I've got. And so even my own investment that I threw in there, I'd have to go back and look at what I sent as far as how much I put in, because frankly, it's been so long, I don't even remember what I put in there. I think I have a ballpark, and what my returns should have been, and so forth. But it's like having a bank account with no bank statements, and I'm kind of trusting there's money there, and it's growing, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but I don't get to see it. So that's a bit of, I guess, a feeling of futility of what's happening, because I just don't know where I sit in this thing at all. And what's starting to dawn on me is the length of time this is taking. We're in Generation 2. Like, this is a long time in real life to just kind of be operating blind. It'd be like working at a really crappy job where your boss never gives you any feedback and you have no idea if you're doing well or not. There's an argument at like senior management levels. Well, you should know if you're doing a good job or whatever. Again, I think I'm doing a good job, but in this case, given that I'm literally ranked against every other employee in the office, like, not knowing what's happening, like, think about if you worked in a job like that, how miserable that would be. Well, you could be the biggest loser in the office, but you'll only find out after 100 years. Until then, just keep doing your thing and hope for the best. So to some degree, I feel like we don't have the information needed to make actual decisions anymore. I think in the beginning, and any more probably is not accurate, because we never had that information. I think that for me it was just speculation of, I think this is what's happening, I think this is what's going on, whatever. But the only glimpse we've gotten into the black box is the one list at the end of Generation 1 that said, hey, here's your rankings. And that glimpse, as I said, was incomplete. And maybe that's part of what they felt would be fun and interesting when they set it up, is, hey, let's just keep everything kind of hidden. But when you're putting in hours and hours of your life, it becomes less rewarding. So as I said, I'm not ready to throw in the towel. I want to see this through. That's kind of my goal. But, you know, you can hear it when I say kind of my goal. It's like, well, is it my goal now? So yeah, so I think, said another way, it's simply like this has become just like the enhanced realism servers. It's just a way to play the game that will change a map for me without having to request a map swap, and that I don't have an option of what map it's going to be. I just get told, you're going to move to this map someday. Because that's part of the other piece that I've been obviously thinking about the last few times, but now it's kind of coming to a head, is, you know, even if we say, hey, when we couldn't get in there, like, didn't count on the clock, within, I didn't set my GPS, but I'll go ahead, I guess, and set it here. I don't know when or if this generation's going to end. This should be the end of year 8 that we're heading into here. I mean, next couple months from now we'll be in winter of year 8, and that's taking into account the fact that the year we in essence couldn't get back in here doesn't count, and that we're really not in year 9. And so that's part of that not knowing. There's been no communication on that. Does that other year count? And so we're in year 9, and therefore we're going to be gone next year, and they're not giving an announcement because, hey, you guys should know the longest it's ever going to go is 10, and so you'll be done then. Or, you know, with everything else that was going on, has it become a bit of a bitten off more than we can chew scenario, where with revamp and everything, all the other work that had to happen, this has kind of fallen off the timetable, and we're now going to be here longer than 10 years. I don't know. I hate when this happens with this fixture sometimes. The way I've seen to fix it is, you know, disconnect it, and then, like, the hitbox or whatever it is isn't as wide when you come in. Okay, why? Oh, I'm not far back. I'm like, why is it not at the trigger point now? Thought I had a different problem, but I don't. So, yeah, it's just a little bit frustrating from that standpoint of not knowing, and I really feel right now I'm going through the motions, because I don't know when this generation is going to end. I have a feeling it should be ending soon, and kind of the fun things that were touted at the start of generational farming, which mainly were the random events and things that would come up, have never happened. It's kind of been a, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Just kidding. So we don't have any of those dynamics. Like, I think in some cases, I mean, any of those events that have had the potential of being there could have really shaken up the results. But you also then need to know what the results are as you're playing, and not just get to see things at the end of the game or something. I mean, once again, if I go back to the sports analogy, if I've got a 10-game season here, and basically in each game, while I'm playing the game, I don't get to see how I'm doing against the other team. I just get to know at the end of each of the games, yep, you won, you lost. This is where you're at. Now we go to the next game. You don't know what's happening. Oh, at the end of the second game, we're going to tell you where you're at. Kind of. Because we're still just putting you in a position, but I don't know if I'm $10 away from the guy ahead of me or $10 billion away from the guy ahead of me. I can make an intelligent guess, but I don't know. And so that's where it becomes one of those things that is like, you've got to then be self-motivated with how much effort you put in. And then so kind of what got me on this topic to begin with is what I was feeling was, frankly, a little bit of dread of coming in here like, oh, I got to go pick up this grass, because I was going to go do something else this morning in the time I had. I'm kind of at the championship rounds in my PGA Tour 2K23 stuff, and because I know the score, that's more fun. Because I know the score. When it comes down to it, not knowing the score in a competition is something that I'm really having a hard time with. I'm basically playing the game in a locked room without having any idea what the other people I'm playing against are doing and how they're doing. And I guess I was just thinking there would be some more visibility on that and some more sharing of that more frequently. I guess a way it can be solved, and at this point I'm just babbling on about possibilities that could work. Let us know, hey, go around, look at all the other servers, and kind of do your own reconnaissance and figure out what might be happening. But again, that only gives us, at this point, after the first that works in the first generation, because we all started with the same amount of money, and then you can basically look around because you know what the playing field is. We're all limited by the same rules and so forth, and it's like, wow, this guy has 7 times more land than me. Wow, he's probably doing better than me. Like, it's not too hard to figure that out. And then you can kind of guess, because you're on the same map, you know what the values are, so forth and so on. And you can kind of guess where things are at. So that's why, like, the person that was ahead of me, I'm speculating they're 5-6 times ahead of me, frankly, because toward the end of the first season, which again I knew was going to end, because they said, hey, year 8, you're leaving at year 110 in FSN time, which turned out to be year 8 in that generation. Like, we're leaving. So before I got to the end, it was like, well, let me go look around. And that's where I was able to see, wow, this one guy did really well. So it wasn't a surprise to me when the board came out that they were ahead of me, but I don't know how far ahead of me they are. And now, because we've had money that we can put in investments and not necessarily sitting in our farm, like, just take the people on my server, for example, as my sample that I'm looking at. My guess would be, with what I know, is locked was, I think, a couple spots behind me. I think he was fourth or fifth. So I know he had made less than me in the first generation, and he had less to start. But he showed up on the server here in this generation with a lot of cash, which again you can see when you just look at the farm list on the server. And so he had a lot of cash, and then he bought a lot of stuff, and he sold a lot of stuff. But that makes me think, like, I know about what I put in to investments, which was, I think, a little over 2 million or something. And then given that he was below me, and then seeing how much cash he had, I don't think he put a lot into any investments. My guess is, given how he's played this season and so forth, is he may have bought a share of the speculative company and was kind of, doing the get-rich-quick scheme that investors do with stocks and so forth, is, hey, I'm going to pick Amazon, I'm going to pick Tesla, I'm going to pick Apple, I'm smart enough to pick the smartest thing, and it's going to go up in value 1,000 times, and that's going to make me work and so forth. And maybe it is, but once again, like, we have no information on how that company is doing. Maybe the people that are investing in it are being given information, and they're getting an annual prospectus every year saying, hey, you've made 5% this year, you lost 1% this year, you've made 20% this year. But once again, given that we're competing against those people, in a normal operation, in the normal world of competitive things, like, we would be told, hey, this is how this is doing, this is how this investment is doing compared to your investment. That's how people then change investments later. So that's the piece. So as we end generation 2 here, and we have to make another investment choice, knowing how that shared investment, that business that you could have bought a share in, has performed, would be a key point. If I'm comparing one mutual fund to another mutual fund, if it's just, hey, here's the name of the mutual fund, here's in theory what it does, but hey, we're not going to tell you what it actually did, even though past performance is not an indicator of future performance. We all get that, but you still use that information to make a decision. Like, we don't have information that should be there to make decisions. And to some degree, some of the things were clear. Like, we didn't know how many years we'd be on there. That's part of the competition, is that not knowing. But I guess if I was to go back in time, I think it should have been, you're going to get no visibility on how people are doing, what they put in investments, how your own investments are actually doing. Because short of, like, going and calculating it myself, I don't, I wouldn't know. And I have an understanding of what I think I did with the investment I chose, and it would go up X% per day. So I'm assuming that's literally per real life calendar day. But what if I'm wrong? What if I misunderstood what they were actually using as the model for interest there? Like, I have no way to verify that my understanding of the financial instrument I invested in is accurate, so that I could be like, oh, I misunderstood that, or get some clarification. And maybe part of it is, like, if what I speculate is correct on the individual who's ahead of me, for example, that they're like, they have 5 times more net worth than I do right now. And so, like, unless I want to bust my butt to do something insane and be more aggressive than they are, and there's no reason to assume that they're being any less aggressive than they were. So they're probably going balls to the wall with what they're doing, and I would have to go balls to the wall times 5, whatever they're doing, to just catch up, not to surpass them. And so I've made that decision, as I've shared, like, I'm not going to invest my entire life into this competition. Like, I'm going to do so much. But it would be nice to know. Like I said, it's feeling a little bit like I'm doing work with literally no idea if what I'm doing is good or not. And again, going back to that job analogy, like I don't know how many people would stick at a job where they don't know if what they're doing matters. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm not even getting a paycheck on this job per se. I mean, I'm farming, but I'm farming in Misty Hills. I'm farming in my other FSN farm, which is where it goes back to the start of my thing. Like, this just feels like I've decided to have 2 servers in my FSN thing, which we've always been able to do as mayors. Like, if you're a mayor, it's like you can have 2 home plots. You can have your main one, that the server you're sponsoring, and then you can be an FM on another server. So generational farming in that sense would be nothing different than what we've had in FSN. So in a nutshell, I guess what I'm feeling is, yes, I'm feeling the lack of difference is really becoming apparent in what's happening here, because it doesn't feel any different. The only difference that I'm seeing, because the events don't occur and so forth, is I got to go to another map without putting in a ticket to swap my map. Other than that, it's the same as FSN. So that's kind of what's been on my heart and how things are proceeding. I think it's been known a little bit. I think those of us that are participating in the farming simulator stuff, I think definitely there was a shift after Giants did the slapdown to leadership about you can't do what you're doing in the farming simulator world, or we're going to do something really evil to you. Again, that was all we got, and I understand they weren't really able to share for fear of getting in more trouble with Giants, which is a whole issue with Giants and how they handled it, that I think was very poor on the Giants' part. But since then, I think the focus of leadership in this community has very much shifted to entrepreneurs, because nobody can touch them there. Like, that's their little sandbox and the little world where they can do whatever they want to do, and nobody's gonna hold them accountable and say, nope, you can't do that. And I can understand the joy and the freedom in that when you're doing a creative endeavor and so forth. So I've no fault in focusing there. But I'm just starting to wonder and speculate if that, again, kind of that reality, the biting off more than we can chew thing, it is kind of what is starting to be seen. Because obviously when generational farming started, enhanced realism servers weren't a thing. There was a lot of effort put into enhanced realism in the last little bit, while we've been sitting here on Generation 2 just doing our thing. So it just kind of looks a bit like we're no longer the favored child in the FSN world. And while generational farming got a lot of attention and hype when it started, the new bright shiny object is enhanced realism, and that's getting a lot of attention, and I don't know when Generation 2 is ending. So that's where I'm at. Picking up my grass. I gotta sell my grass. I mean, I knew I was waiting until when things went, but it became like I'm losing the enthusiasm to bust my ass, because I don't know what that ass busting is getting me. Because I can't see how I'm doing compared to other people. It's just not transparent enough, not even nearly enough. My guess is I'm doing great. I have the value of, I was right after the first thing. I ended up second on the leaderboard, and that's kind of where I figured I'd be, given, again, my own reconnaissance. I guess I would just ask if that's kind of what it's going to be, and we're only going to have one possible random event per generation. Those are the unknowns, I guess, that would help things for me right now. Like, just let me know. You're not going to see any more information, rather than me just assuming and hoping that something will change. Just dash my hopes on the rocks of reality and say, nope, we're never going to show you more than a leaderboard at the end. You're never going to really know how close you are to anybody else. You're not going to know how anybody's investments are doing. I mean, what I was expecting was kind of a leaderboard that literally updated, kind of like I can look at standings in any league, in any competitive sport anywhere, and say, yep, this is how all the teams rank, this is what they've done, this is how many wins, how many losses. And I get that takes a little bit of time, but I thought like that was what was being committed to being done. And to some degree I can see what's being delivered and say, oh, I guess this is it, and just operate with the expectation of I'm never going to see more than I see, and if I do, we should be grateful, and so forth. But so we'll see. So I'm here, I'm functioning, but I'm being upfront that believe it or not, I may choose to step back from this, because it's frankly not a ton of entertainment, because it's more of the same is what it's turned into. And I don't think that was the intent. That was certainly not how the introduction document was written. There were things that were going to make this unique, and we've experienced to some degree a little bit of that, but most of it hasn't come to pass in a tangible way. So I've probably gone on enough. At this point I'm just going to kind of beat a dead horse. You know where it is. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to finish this, but in reality, I have to stop right now and go do some things in real life. But it's then finding the motivation to come back here on the field and keep going. That is what I was even struggling with, versus, well, I'll keep playing, but I'll kind of play, because I'm less upset about, hey, I only was able to get 2 harvests and so forth. So it's like, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of mental energy here to try to figure out how to get my calendar back to 3 harvests like I was getting, and again, kicking myself for the mistake I made that kind of put me in this spot to begin with. So that's all on me. I mean, those are decisions I made. That's part of the fun here but again, that's an FSN thing. Like, it's real time and progresses just like real life, and decisions you make, the consequences reverberate through time. And in this case, that's what I'm running into, is it's now going to be at least 3 years that I'm still taking to recover from the mistake I made 3 years ago with messing up the calendar time and so forth. They're supposed to get the calendars on the generational server set finally in the next few days. So that will help that issue, where as the servers delay and so forth, I'm not, I can probably put things on another spreadsheet that let me know very clearly generational servers on this month, My regular farm is on this month, because those floated in time as these were going on, because the focus was on the revamp and they weren't syncing servers and things like that. So I think these servers got further and further behind, which may or may not have been, and again, I could have come in every day and checked it, so I'm not blaming anybody but me on that, but it was just one of those, like, it's just another point of information. Like, if I had known what really the offset was, I could have had some sort of a tracker that I developed to try to help me manage that. So, alright. So that's enough. I'm going to sign off and then go do what I need to do in real life and eventually get this video posted. And I will see you next time, which will likely be when I'm selling some of this silage so that things can start progressing again. But I may be waiting. Well, it will be November. I mean, I'm not going to be probably moving anything in the next 3 hours, given that October is here. But at this point, like, whether I get this stuff off this field in October or not doesn't really matter, because the grass is growing. I can't do the harvest until the spring. So the biggest challenge would be if somehow in getting the generational servers on time, if they suddenly jump a huge amount of months, that could throw a monkey wrench into things, because right now I'm looking at this and saying April, May is when I'm going to be able to harvest, so I've got 4 or 5 days. I've got nearly a week where I don't really have to do anything here other than sell stuff to keep the fermenting silo moving and all of that. So, so I hope that doesn't happen, because that again would kind of throw a monkey wrench into things, because at this point I'm assuming, this being a weekend that we're in right now, that this is all I got to do here. You know what? What I got to do here is I got to fertilize. So that's the other thing, because then I will have missed that window. This grass will sit there, but if it gets to 4 of 4 tomorrow, which it may, I'm going to have a problem. So let me drop this stuff off and go fertilize. So that is what I'm going to go do very quickly here. And then, because that has to happen in October, otherwise I potentially have a problem. So, whoops. And I think I filled the fertilizer last time, so kind of in anticipation of the fact that this will really be the job I need to do, and then I get a long hiatus away, which once again I was looking forward to. I shouldn't honestly be looking forward to that. To me, that's an alarm bell that this has become, this is less entertaining than it should be. I should be happy to come in. I'm happy to come into my FSN farm. I'm happy to come into my single player farm. But I'm not one who would have run 2 farms, and I wasn't doing that. I didn't take advantage of that fact as I was on the mayor. And I say, hey, I'm done, and I just keep babbling on and on. Welcome to the channel. This is kind of what happens. So if you're still here, thank you very much. I know this has been a lot of rambling, whining, complaining about how I wish things were different in certain things, and what's frustrating me about the reality we're in. But if you're still here, thank you for tagging along and validating my sadness. But I never took advantage of the fact that I could have a second farm with being a sponsor, because I had no interest in that. I don't want that extra work. That's not my thing. This is gonna, now I realize, like, this is gonna mess me up too, because whatchamacallit, I think I'm gonna lose my line when I move these on the other end of the field to line up, it's going to screw me up for picking up the grass, but it is what it is. I'll figure it out. I always do. But that's what my struggle is at the core, I guess, if I get to it. I was never looking at running 2 farms on FSN. I did this because this was going to be a very different experience, and to some degree it was for a bit. But because the other things that were making it unique are not happening, we're not getting random events, we're not really getting information to keep score, to know how we're doing, this has become running a second farm. And so there is a possibility that my decision will be, I'm just done with this. Like, I'm not going to chew up part of my life to continue going down this path. But the thing that's tugging against me is I don't like to do things and then walk away from them. I'm not a quitter in real life. Like, I signed up for this. I want to do it. I want to see it through to the end. And I understood that I may not enjoy it. It may become a grind at times, but it's becoming a grind in ways that I was not at all expecting, because the way it was written up and the way I interpreted it, and I guess I would challenge to hear from anybody else who's in here who interpreted it differently, other than just, hey, you made some assumptions that we'd get reports and whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. We were never told there's going to be live scoreboards updated daily. I'm not implying that. But what I have assumed, I suppose, and this again is an assumption, so shame on me if I assumed incorrectly. Let's make sure this isn't coming out, because I need to reposition what is happening. There we go. Like, I need to reposition this, but I don't want to be losing any fertilizer. Like, I could go into the banking on the FSN website every day and see what my balance is, and see how my balance has changed. I was expecting something like that with the investments in the generational farming thing, that at a minimum, for my investments, I could see what was happening. I mean, I think to be competitive and to actually play appropriately, we need to see what everybody's investments are doing, because that will help us make a decision. Because, like it or not, this isn't, this was never touted as compete against yourself and see how much money you can make. The goal is to do better than others. Therefore, we should see how others are doing, and that would be in all aspects. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, and it wouldn't have to be leadership. Someone could step up, one of us could do it, I suppose, but we don't have enough information to do it well, which is why it's never been something I've pursued. But, like, you could toss up a blog in the generational farming Discord and just say, hey, so-and-so is pulling ahead and they're doing this, and look, they've added a chicken farm, and this is helping here. Like, to me, that would have been a really cool part of what we had, because with my analysis brain and what I've done in the first generation to get me here and so forth, like, I would eat that kind of stuff up, like, and doing that work voluntarily and reporting on it. Like, I would love doing that. Like, oh yeah, this is how they're pulling ahead, and you've seen a little bit of that from me in other episodes. Like, hey, when Locke threw sheep in, I'm like, let me go look at this, let me go think about it, let me see, and then I modeled it, and well, this is what it would be doing, and I'll watch his balance and see if somehow I'm off, and nothing showed me that I was, and that works great. But I can only do that in a microcosm. Like, if Locke put anything in investments, I don't know what that is. How those investments are doing, I don't know. How my investments are doing, I don't know. So, but anyway. So that's it. So now that I'm doing this, you can see I'll be done here shortly, even though I really should be gone in real life. Like, I need to get this done because I know otherwise I'm not going to get back on here before it rolls over to November, and then I'll have missed my window. So this is just, the wonderful reality, which again I love, of the Farming Simulator network, which is the challenge of I'm up against a real clock. I'm up against a real deadline. Like, I need to get this fertilizer done before that clock hits 2400, and that's what I'm going to do. And it's also only going to take me 5-10 more minutes to finish that. So I'm going to get that done, but I'm going to wrap this up and step away from this extremely long video, way longer than I was expecting it to be. But again, if you've made it through to the end, thank you very much for listening. Give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. I'm sure I'm going to get plenty of people telling me, shut up, stop whining, play, or if you don't like it, quit and don't play. I get those are things within my control and decisions I'll have to make. It's just like I said, I'm not a quitter, and the likelihood is I'll continue on. I'm just sharing where I'd like some clarity on what's going to happen. Like, when are we going to leave the server? Where are we going next? Is it going to go beyond 10 years or not? Because it's really starting to feel like it will. But that could be wrong. But even if I'm wrong, I feel that's going to be a rushed thing at this point. And it happened because of all the other stuff that was going on. So anyway, that's it. I will see you next time.